All right. Wait, actually, yeah. Can you clap?
1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Since I forgot to do that with Amy, and I was like, at least, well, Premiere now has a thing where you can auto, like you can just merge all the things together and it'll auto line up all the audio.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know this until Greg was telling me. Like,
I edited on Premiere and I didn't know.
I also edit on Premiere, and like Greg who like does like the most random things with Premiere was like, oh yeah, did you know about this? I was like, dude, I've edited on Premiere for 8 years. No, I did not know this was a thing.
Oh man, I need to go check that out.
Yeah, it's like, I'll show you. It's very helpful. It's very nice. But yes, welcome everyone back to. Wow, I forgot the name.
What's the name of your thing?
It's called Start Your Engines.
Start Your Engines.
Because I was like, wow, yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. Start your engines with a cup of coffee, which we have a lovely Americano with just a splash of milk in it.
Is that what I'm drinking?
That's what you're drinking.
It's good.
It's good. Is that what you would normally go for, coffee?
Yeah, I think just like coffee with a little bit of milk. Pretty simple.
Milk.
Yeah.
That's your go-to at a coffee shop order then?
Yeah. What is your coffee background? I know you were moonlighting as a coffee influencer for a while.
Yeah.
But you haven't updated the post on that page for a few years.
Wait, which page?
You're on your coffee page.
Oh God, you found the caffeinated consultant page?
I mean, it's on your Instagram bio.
I actually always forget that it's linked on my Instagram, and then I go and I'm like, oh shit, that's still linked on my Instagram.
I'm like, all right, last post was in 2021.
Gosh,
it's been a minute.
Yeah, I like randomly ended up in the coffee industry in 2016 during my like sophomore year of college because I was working at our school's cafeteria.
Yeah.
And it was horrible, obviously.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was pretty awful. And I worked there for like 2 years and then was living at home at the time. And in the apartment complex where my parents lived, they were opening like a random coffee shop. And I was like, well, I'll apply. And the interview was literally, do you like coffee and how many hours a week can you work? And I was like, yeah, I like coffee. And then I like basically got the job. But
like, you don't want to ask me any other questions. I did a lot of research for this interview.
It was a 6-minute interview, which I'd always enjoyed coffee, but I was not like as knowledgeable as I am now. And they like paid training through like Klatch Coffee out here. We did like training with them.
Hell yeah.
And it's like, that's where I started and just kind of like weirdly ended up in the coffee industry and did a lot of baristaing work. Cause it's like, I always enjoyed like, I hate early mornings. I'm not a morning person.
Same.
Like, but if you like force me to get up for work, especially when there's coffee involved, then it's like kind of great because you get 8 hours in and then it's like 2 p.m.
Right.
And it's like I can still go and enjoy the rest of the day, hang out with friends in the evening.
Sure.
Versus working a night job, you know? So very random. And then ended up like during COVID, like taking over sales for like Portola coffee roasters down in Orange County and worked for them for a while. Ended up managing a shop up in Malibu for a few months and then quit there. And that was kind of the last thing I did in coffee. But one of the things that I did was I had always wanted to roast coffee. And so I started with like a very classic, like, I mean, it's basically a, what do you call it? Like a popcorn popper, like a hand, like with the little spinner, and you just do it over like an open flame.
Has it always been your dream to roast?
It was one of the things I did. Yeah, like, yeah, I woke up one morning, I was like, I'm gonna roast coffee. I was like, it was just very random. And I was like, you know what? Let's like make this the whole thing and like sell coffee. And it was fun. It was just the amount of work that I had put in for like 2 orders a month, which is kind of what it ended up being, was like, it was like, it just wasn't worth the effort at that point.
Fair.
But I posted a lot of content around coffee, and that was kind of what kickstarted the F1 stuff. Is I'd been posting coffee stuff and then like posted a random F1 video.
Yeah.
And then that one did like...
So it happened by accident.
Yeah, by accident. It like did super well. It was literally like I was boarding a flight to go hang out with some friends in Michigan, and there was like a guy in front of me watching like... It was like quality highlights or something from that day, and I like took a video and I was like, oh, just 2 closeted F1 fans here. Because at that point it was like really late 2020 or like really early 2021, so just taking off in the US.
Okay.
So definitely not as popular as it is now here.
Sure.
And it did really well. I was like, okay, went back to coffee, and then like posted another video, did really well. I was like, that's weird. And I think I did it one more time. I was like, all right, we're switching the content over.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's been like sort of the origin story of a lot of like F1 content creators. But when you meet someone that is still really involved in coffee or like is a barista, do you kind of like have like a jaded view of it? You're like, yeah, I used to work at coffee. It's a tough racket.
There is, honestly, so there's always the thing of like coffee snobs, which there are. I mean, like having worked in like especially the specialty world of coffee for so long, like there are those people that are like, I am better than you. Let me show off my tattoos and push up my glasses and tie up my man bun, and like tell you all about coffee. And like I would say, because of what, almost 9 years technically in like the coffee world and like specialty coffee, I'm very knowledgeable in like the world of coffee, and like especially specialty coffee. And the only thing that ever gets me is like when people are like, oh yeah, I'm a barista, and I'm like, well, where do you work? And they're like, Dunkin', Starbucks. I'm like, no, I'm so sorry, you hit a button. Like that's the only time I ever get jaded. Or when they just, certain shops will just do their own thing and they will call thing. My dad literally was like, I've been trying to get him to try a flat white because I was like, I think you'll enjoy it. Like you do like the taste of coffee.
Sure.
And it's just a latte with less milk. And he like sent me a photo. He was like, oh, I got a flat white. And I looked and it's a Gibraltar glass, which is a cortado. It's like 4 ounces of liquid. And I was like, Dad, that's not, like, I'm sure hopefully it tastes good. I was like, that's not a flat white.
So there is some sense of elitism when you like talk about coffee with people. Okay, fair enough.
My big problem is how like certain things in the coffee industry have been ruined by some of the big corporations, where like someone will walk in to a shop and they'll just like expect every shop to have a caramel macchiato, which a macchiato is not even what they make it. It's ridiculous. But like there's like all the big chains that will have certain drinks, and people will walk into like a small specialty shop in like the middle of Malibu, and they'll be like, can I get this? Be like, why would we have
you don't want coffee, you want a milkshake.
Yeah. You're like, first of all, they'll be like, you don't have a blender? Be like, no. And I've like had multiple shops that I've either managed or worked for that have tried to get blenders, and I've always shot them down. Be like, the amount of work that this takes for like for baristas to do is crazy, and the return is just not good.
So the F1 content thing started by accident. What was the second video you made?
The second one, I'm pretty sure, was a video about Daniel, which is not surprising.
Ricardo.
Yep.
Okay.
Daniel Ricardo, and I was
not Daniel Kvyat.
No. But oh my god, that would have been so funny. No, I think it was Daniel Ricardo, and I was at the beach with friends, and it must have been a race weekend, because I remember when I really got into like F1 content and started consistently posting, it was, I want to say like late April, May.
21.
It would have been right around when like the European section of like racing started that year.
Okay.
And there must have been like something that like happened with like a race, like something they did well or something. I don't even remember. But like I just remember I posted like a random video, like lip syncing a sound, and it was like about Daniel.
Was it when he won Monza? Maybe.
No, because that was down the road.
Okay.
That was a great weekend for me.
Okay.
But yeah, it was just like so funny, and it didn't even do like crazy well. It's just when you've been uploading for freaking 6 months coffee videos and they barely break 1,000 views, and then you upload a video about Daniel that was no effort and it gets 30,000 views, you go, hold on.
Well, I think a lot of people like don't realize if they're just now starting to like do content creation, like the easiest way to get engagement is to reinforce an already existing fan base.
Yep.
It's kind of like a cheat code.
Yeah.
But then you can do that, but you can only do that so many times where you're just like saying, hey, like this if you like this.
Yep.
Like if you eventually have to do some sort of like unique take or perspective on it.
Yeah.
But starting off like just being like, hey, that I realize that whenever I post something about Ferrari, it like goes almost every time goes viral.
Yep.
That's just because there's so many hardcore tifosi out there that are like gonna like anything that has anything to do with
like,
Ferrari.
oh, you said Ferrari. Boop.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you watch 3 seconds longer and you're like, Ferrari is terrible at strategy. And they're like, oh, take the light back. Take it back. I'm sorry. And they're like, actually, no, you're right. That is true. They are clowns.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is weird though, because I know one of the big things. I mean, I was just on top of a lot of trends initially, which I think can still work in the world of F1. But there's, we were talking about this before we turned the mics on. But like, there's just been such a shift in the world of like F1 content that you really have to like change your mentality and like what used to work. Like even for me, like what was working and like making like a lot of like quick funny videos just really doesn't hit as much as it used to.
I think it's because they're like easy, like we talked about before. It's low hanging fruit.
Yeah,
like it's easy to come up with that idea and to execute it, and so a lot of people are going to end up doing it.
Yeah,
and so you can still make a video like that, but there are going to be 20 other videos like that online. So it's like, how are you really differentiating yourself from 24 other people that are making a version of the same video?
Yeah, I know for like myself, like I really, without even like trying to, like I really niched down as like a really big Daniel fan, so people knew that, and like a McLaren fan,
right?
And so when like Monza weekend happened, it was like my account went absolutely bonkers, like to the level it did at the end of the year with the videos I was posting from Abu Dhabi. I mean, that was just content gold mine at the end of the day.
Sure.
But like it was people like knew there's like, oh, Josh isn't just posting about Daniel winning because Daniel, like he's like, we've seen his videos for like a long time. And I think that is one of the things that can still work for people is like if you really solidify yourself as like, this is like either my person or my team, or like there's like a specific element that you go for.
Right.
I think that can definitely still work as long as it is genuine. And like, I'm a fan of other drivers as well.
Sure.
Like people know I'm like a ride or die Daniel Ricciardo fan at the end of the day.
So you're saying it was important for to establish like character development and world building. It's just like writing a TV show.
Weird. Weird how you could scroll through my like 3,000 plus TikToks and it's really just one long TV series. If you really, I'll put that. I'm gonna make an IMDb page for myself, and it's just gonna say TikTok series.
At Barista Josh.
At Barista Josh. Yeah. But to talk more about you, because this is people know about me. They don't want to know more. Give, I guess, a really quick, for maybe, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to watch and know who you are and know the things you do, but give a quick overview of your background and how you got in F1. Because I know for you, it's probably kind of similar to me. It kind of like happened through the course of other things in life happening.
Yeah, it happened by accident and like happened in a very organic way. But like going back, like, I worked in production for a very long time. I was like a production assistant on a bunch of TV shows and movies. Like my first job out of college is I was a PA on 30 Rock for 3 seasons. And in New York, I started, as I was working in TV and film, I started taking improv classes at UCB in New York. So I was like, and then eventually started performing and doing a lot of improv and sketch comedy in New York. And then I started like pursuing acting. After that, like I got a commercial agent and then eventually got a manager and like a TV film agent.
Nice.
And so like my background is comedy and my background is like performing. And I was a spokesperson for Spectrum, the cable company, and Spectrum Mobile for 3 years. And I shot like 20 commercials a year for them for 3 years.
That's crazy.
And that was like, I was able to like quit my day job. Which was amazing. But lived in New York, moved to California like 4 years ago. And, I've made stuff online, for 15 years, whether it's sketch comedy or whether it's like front facing character stuff on Instagram and TikTok. But it was always sort of like generic comedy, like just about anything and everything that I was like inspired to do. And the F1 stuff kind of happened by accident. During the pandemic, my wife and I got into Drive to Survive, like a lot of newer fans.
I'm in that boat as well.
It's like, it's like Beauty and the Beast. It's tale as old as time.
Yeah.
But we immediately got hooked and like we binged it. I think all like 5 seasons, because that was out of the time in like 2 weeks or something like that. And that was like a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
And the first race I ever watched was last year's Australian Grand Prix.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And so like I'm still like very, very new to this, but like my wife and I immediately got into F1 and started watching all the races. And because of Drive to Survive, we were doing like team talk in the car where she was pretending to be like a Ferrari race engineer and I was the driver, and she'd
I remember those videos. Those are funny.
Push, box. Thanks.
Those are good videos. I think those are some of the first videos I saw of yours, and I was like, before I even like really knew like who you were or anything, they just popped on my For You page, and I was like, oh, this guy's pretty funny. Like, these are good videos. I was like, man, why didn't I think of this? This is hilarious.
Yeah. But like I posted that one video, not thinking of anything. I'm like, this is probably gonna get like 100 likes or something. Like, a few people will think it's funny, but it was intersectional in the sense that it not only it was like F1 specific, but it also was like specific to relationships. And there's like a lot of relationships that people are in where they do that.
Yep.
And so like I had like, and it went super viral, like ESPN shared it, motorsport.com shared it, like I think Sports Illustrated shared it. And I was like, okay, I still have footage from when we shot it in the car. Let me cut like 3 more versions of this.
Yeah.
And I put those out, and those all went viral too.
That's crazy.
So like 3 versions of more versions of the same video. So I was like, okay, let me do like one more F1 video and then I'll be done with it. And I made like a listicle video.
What we all say.
Yeah. I made like a listicle video, and I did like comparing Formula One teams to NFL franchises. And I like compared, I said Ferrari or like the Cowboys, and Mercedes or like the Patriots, and Red Bull or like the Chiefs or whatever.
Yep.
And then I made one more where I compared F1 drivers to Mario Kart characters. And like those all went like super mega viral. So I'm like, okay, I'll keep making F1 content until it stops getting engagement. And it never did.
Yeah. And here we are.
Yeah. And in a year, I went from like 3,000 followers on Instagram to now it's like at 54,000.
Yeah.
And like it happened like very organically and like kind of by accident. Like Tony Calvin Brown actually posted today about how she also sort of became an F1 content creator by accident.
Yeah.
And I think that is the origin story for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And I think also a lot of the successful ones, because I think if you just come out the gate saying, okay, I'm going to be an F1 content creator because of XYZ, there's nothing wrong with it. But I feel like sometimes when you're deliberate saying I'm going to be an F1 content creator, there may be a lack of authenticity in it.
You can tell sometimes, honestly, I think. Yeah.
You may tell like someone might be doing it because like they want to get a paddock pass, or they're like, oh, this is my chance to like get a lot of followers and be a content creator. Yep. Like some of the best ones, it happened organically and by accident. And you see that once you like talk to them and they talk about like their origin story.
Yeah. 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 It is wild how just like for so many of us in the space, it just kind of like we were doing other things. Like for myself, it was all like I always wanted to like make videos, things like that. Like that was always like a big dream. Like I like made vlogs like in college just to like make content and stuff. And like they never did crazy well. So like when like the F1 stuff started hitting, I was like, well, this would be fun at the end of the day. And it was like for me, the big switch was coffee had been such a big part of my life. And like for up to that point, like 6-7 years, that like I was realizing that like making those videos of like reviewing different coffees, like doing like a thing about a machine, different things. It was like fun, but it was starting to feel more like a chore.
Sure.
Like rather than like something that I've always enjoyed.
Yeah.
And like it was the same for like I did for like a year and a half in college. One of my majors was like art photography, because I always loved photography, but like doing art photography and getting like the most stupid assignments to be like, take this kind of photo and be like, I just want to take photos.
Yeah.
It like I left the major because it made me start to hate photography.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't want that to happen with coffee. So I think for like me, like F1 came out of nowhere, where it was like I was like still similar to you, like pretty early on into it. Like I'd watched like a lot of highlights the year previous, but 2021 was like the first one where I would like wake up in the morning, watch as much of the race I could, drive to work on like a Sunday morning, and like really got to like enjoy the sport and everything. And then it just kind of happened. Yeah, it's like I definitely there's like a lot of people. There's some people I know that like really obviously wanted it to happen, and I think they've done a good job of like keeping it very authentic while still being like, this is something I want to do. But you can tell like it's an energy that you give off at the end of the day, and I think that applies to like every world of like any kind of content that you make at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like my approach to all this is like I'm essentially making jokes and making observations that I would be making like to my wife Jenny,
Yeah.
or to my friends. I'm just then putting it on a platform
Just turning a
for
camera on
more
and then-
people to see. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm gonna be making these jokes anyway. I might as well just like put them out into the world and at this point. And like it's I don't know. It's been very fun for me because I'm like your journey is like a content creator. I'm taking a skill set that I've developed over the years. I know how to do all these things. I know how to like shoot. I know how to edit. I know how to write. And I'm just applying it to this very super like hyper niche.
Yeah.
And at this point, I've painted myself into a corner where like I can't post about anything but F1 because when I do, nobody cares.
Yeah. I like post like a random coffee thing and it was just flop. And I'm like, yeah, well, whatever. Like that one was for me. I don't care at the end of the day, which sometimes you got to do. You got to post the things that are just kind of fun for you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Which I think very, very important to do. One thing that I've been asking every person so far, and I was going to do this beginning, but I forgot, is 3 things. Your current favorite motorsport to watch, your favorite driver across any kind of racing, and we'll start with those 2, and then I'll follow up with the 3rd one.
I think my favorite motorsport to watch is IndyCar, because, and I've said this before in videos, I've said this before in comments, like, I think the product, like the actual racing in IndyCar, is unbelievable. Like, I love F1, but I think there is more competition and more parity in IndyCar. But it needs better packaging. It needs better marketing.
Yes.
I think one of the reasons why we love F1 so much is like the personalities and the drivers. And I do think the personalities are there in IndyCar. They just haven't figured out a way to highlight and showcase them the way they do in Formula One.
Oh yeah.
So like my favorite motorsport series to watch is IndyCar. 100%. I'd say like my favorite driver, it bounces around a lot. I don't have like one driver or team that I always like cheer for or root for. Like in Formula One, like I love Lewis Hamilton. Like I like Checo. I like Alex Albon. I like Esteban Ocon. Like I tend to sort of gravitate towards drivers that had to overcome some sense of adversity in their lives, because many of the people who drive in motorsport come from like a privileged background. And so to be able to like be in Formula One, just to have a seat in Formula One is a miracle. You think of the odds it is to get there. But the people that had to overcome so much adversity growing up, and then they also make it, is like a miracle to the nth degree.
Yeah. Like
you look at guys like Checo, who had to get sponsorship from Carlos Slim, the Mexican billionaire. You know, you look at Lewis Hamilton's upbringing, and his dad was like working multiple jobs and like not sleeping, and then waking up and driving him to karting races, and or not sleeping, and then loading up his cart into a van and driving him to races. And you hear stories about Esteban Ocon's family like living in a caravan for a while. Like those are the drivers that are like really inspiring to me. So I always sort of, there's like a special place in my heart for those.
All right, so then the 3rd question is, currently, who is your like the athlete that inspires you the most?
It's a boring answer, but you mean in motorsport?
This is in general. So like this could be any athlete. If you want to keep it in motorsport, that's up to you. But this is a very broad athlete question.
I mean, there are a lot of athletes that inspire me, but like to keep it in motorsport, I would say Lewis Hamilton, because like there's all these conversations about like Lewis Hamilton, is he the GOAT? Can you really say he's like in the same era as like Michael Schumacher and Ayrton Senna? And yes, he did have the advantage of like Mercedes being in the right place in the right time in the turbo hybrid era, and just getting the car and the power unit right for that era. And like there is the component of that and how dominant they were that contributes to his success. Yeah. However, and you could say that, like, let's say Max drove another 10 years, Max like might win 8 World Driver Championships. Like on paper, like Max might be the best driver ever in Formula One. But like, I do think there's like a difference between like best and greatest. Like, I think Lewis Hamilton is the greatest because like he transcends like motorsport. Like he is not just about accomplishments on the track. It's about like trying to make the world a better place off the track. But also like trying to make motorsport a better place for everybody. Like, you know, like initiatives like Mission 44 and the Hamilton Commission.
Yeah.
Like trying to increase like diversity, equity, and inclusion in Formula One. Like, he is someone that I find very inspiring, not just because of like everything he overcame to get where he is, but like what he does with his privilege and access now.
Yeah. I think it's always very impressive to me every time I see him when there's an F1 Academy race at the track that they're at, and like a session will have finished, he'll have done interviews. He could very easily be like every other driver and just like go chill and relax and rest, but it's like he is like on track, like supporting like F1 Academy and like other things. And it's like he doesn't have to. But at the end of the day, like it is like for the same rate, like Seb is like one of my favorites. And I think for very similar reasons to Lewis, like they have their convictions and what they will stand up for at the end of the day. And it's like they're not going to let the fact that they are like a worldwide superstar in the world of racing like change what they think or what they believe. And they're going to stand up for it at the end of the day. And I so much respect for that. Yeah. It would be so easy to just be like, oh, like I can't be bothered with that. And it's like, sure, you know, it's in like you can't just ignore the things that are like, especially when you're talking about like the world of racing. It's like, you know, I know drivers, other people get asked about sometimes, you know, about, you know, diversity and like women in motorsports, and like some of them will kind of brush off an answer. And it's like, we're not asking about like the Amazon rainforest here. Like this is racing. Like this is your personality. Yeah, totally. So it's always cool to see how like, and I think it's unfortunate that like Lewis is kind of like the main one now that is really, you know, standing up to different issues and doing things. So I think, you know, it would be great to see other people in F1 and just at motorsports in general. But I think there are, and like when you look at like motorsports as a whole, but like in the world of F1, I mean, it's kind of driver wise, it's kind of just Lewis.
It's kind of just him. And the counterpoint to that is I think there are probably many drivers on the grid who feel like they can't afford to. They have to like be apolitical to continue to be marketable and like brand safe. But there are drivers who can't afford to be like that. Like Max Verstappen could afford to be political and talk about things he cares about, but he doesn't.
No. Instead, he double books his weekend with the 24 hours virtual of Nürburgring and Imola by accident. That is, you know, that man is fully focused on racing at the end of the day. And like, if no one has a pass for not caring about certain issues, but like, if there's anyone that I'd be like, yeah, maybe you genuinely don't think about it, it would be Max at the end of the day. Because it's like, he gets done, he goes to the sim. He gets off the sim, and he goes back to the track. And it's like, dude, you're crazy at the end. Like, that is wild.
He's like a robot that just likes to race and drink.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And it's crazy. But no, Lewis, I think Lewis Hamilton is a fantastic answer for that at the end of the day. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see what he does moving forward.
I'm excited. I'm very excited. I think what was so interesting, I think what really showed me like the magnitude of like his level and fame and influence in the sport and all of motorsport was when it was formally announced that he was moving to Ferrari. Yeah. Drivers were talking about it from a fan perspective. Yeah. Like I remember seeing IndyCar drivers, WEC drivers, Formula E drivers, like other F1 drivers posting about it, being like, oh my God. Yeah. Like it shook the world. And I just crazy. Like, I can't wait. I can't wait to see him in the red.
It's funny to see. Yeah. Like you said, like drivers turn into fans. Yeah. Like, cause you don't really see that. Like you can tell that like people are so, I mean, even like Lando wins, but like, you know, kind of a friend thing, but then Lewis announces going to Ferrari and everyone's like, whoa, this is crazy. Like what is happening? Yeah. Yeah. But to balance, I mean, you were talking about IndyCar and how great it is. And as someone, how long have you been following IndyCar? Similar to F1?
Yeah, about a year.
Did you, so I guess to start with, did you follow racing at all before F1, or was F1 kind of the first?
Never.
Really?
Never like watched a race in my life.
Wild.
Yeah. And then just got really into it. And like F1 was like the gateway drug to IndyCar and then Formula E. And then sometimes like endurance racing, like, you know, this year I watched like the Rolex, 24 hours of Daytona.
Yep.
And
Yep.
watched Le Mans last year.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Drive to Survive is like that free Costco sample that then you come back and you spend $800 on a Silverstone ticket and you go, wait, how did that happen? What? Like, why am I in England? Like,
Yeah. First one's free.
Yeah, literally. First one's free. The rest, they're going to be hella expensive. But I know you talk about IndyCar, and for myself, getting to F1 in 2021, and then I think when I was like 10, I went to the Indy 500 with my dad. Don't really think I appreciated it as much as I could have been.
Sure.
Was kind of like, because of one of my best friends was kind of a NASCAR fan at that point, and I just remember it was like one of the hottest weekends they had.
Oh my God.
And it was like as a 10-year-old, I think it's a little harder to appreciate. So want to go back, but going to Long Beach in 2023 for the first time.
Yep.
Was kind of my first foray back into IndyCar, and I was like, this is so cheap.
Yep.
This is so accessible. Like the fact that I can like get into all these areas for so little money. Like the racing's always fun.
Yeah.
And like this year, I would say is the first year where I've really started to watch, actually like watch IndyCar races on TV, and like missed St. Pete, but like, was at Long Beach, and then watched Barber, which was a great race. Like
Barber was great.
It was crazy.
Insane.
It's
so much happened there.
People are always like, they're like, oh, it would take so much for like F1 to be good. I'm like, honestly, all you need is some varying strategies at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And every time, like we haven't really seen it a lot this season. Probably, I would say kind of farther back in the field slightly.
Yeah.
But like anytime there's a variance in strategies like IndyCar had at Barber, like it makes for some wild racing.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get it completely right. Sometimes you get it completely wrong. And it's like Barber was great. The road course at Indy was also like such a fun race to watch.
Yeah, it was close.
It was very close. And
I thought Lundgaard was going to pull it off towards the end. But,
I really thought he was going to get it, and
Yeah.
that was so unfortunate. But again, it's just great racing, and I think what is cool is it's so accessible. Like it's so easy to like do, and I think even from like a like working in motorsports, like we both like make content around motorsports. Like I know you're officially content creator for like Formula E now. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For this season.
For this season. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, everyone's dream is to work in F1 when you like make content.
Sure.
That's such a hard thing to do at the end of the day. Like it's very doable, but like the like access, the things that you need to like make that happen, or it's like what I've kind of realized is like, there's so many great series out there. It's like the goal, I would love to do things. I would, present whatever it might be with F1. I was like, but like I got to like hang out with drivers at IndyCar and like interview some of the drivers. And I know you were talking about like the IndyCar is missing that like personal side that F1 has.
Yeah.
And like after getting to like interview a lot of the drivers and just like chat with them, like, oh my God, you guys would kill it on like a series like Drive to Survive. Like people would love to see like this personal side. And I think some of the teams are getting better at showing.
And 100 Days to Indy does an aspect of that, but I still feel like 100 Days in Indy has such a narrow focus with the build up to the Indianapolis 500 that like you don't get to see as much as you do in Drive to Survive.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, not nearly as much, but I think it's just there's so many fun races. Like, you talked about Daytona 24, like 24 Hour Le Mans was like the first like WEC race that I like watched and tried to like watch a good chunk of it, and I was like, this is sick.
Yeah, it's fun.
To be fair, last year's was crazy.
Yeah.
And it was a nuts race. But like even the 6 hours of Spa just happened, and that was a crazy race. Shout out to Callum, my boy, getting the first win for Joda. But like that's a team that started a year ago.
Yeah.
And literally like came onto the scene, and now like again because of some wild things that happened, and like some things definitely fell into place. But at the end of the day, won the race on merit, and like that is so cool. And I think we will get that in F1, but it's the nature of F1 that there is that potential for domination. And so everyone sees like the 2021 season, they're like, yes, this is F1. It's like
yeah, I think
not all the time.
I think in a way like new fans got spoiled by 2021
Yeah.
because 2021 not that I was a fan then, but looking back at it, like that was an outlier. That was like an exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
So like usually it's a team dominating considerably, and that's kind of what Formula One is. And like 2021 was like so unbelievably close and exciting that a lot of the newer fans like tune in in 22 and tune in on 23, and they're like, why isn't this anything like
what
happened in
happened?
21? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's like that's just the nature of the sport. It seems like it's just gonna every sport has dominations to an extent, but probably in F1 it might be more noticeable than other sports.
Yeah, there's several eras of dominance in Formula One that, like, if you haven't been a fan for a long time, you won't like be really privy to.
Yeah.
Like, you go all the way back to like the 70s and 80s, and McLaren and Williams were winning like the lion's share of championships and titles. Then you go to like the end of the 90s into the 2000s, and Ferrari was dominating with Schumacher.
Yep.
With the exception of like those 2 years where Renault won in 05 and 06. And then you had like Red Bull winning 4 years in a row, 09 to 13, and then you had Mercedes dominating the turbo hybrid era, and now you have Red Bull. It just goes like, it goes from like era of dominance to era of dominance, and that's just kind of how Formula One goes. And it's all, I think often it is about getting the car right for the next gen of power unit or engine. So it's like, I'm fascinated, and I wish, and I know they would never give us updates in the news about this because it's like very like much like a secret arms race, but I'm so interested to see who gets the new engine regulations right.
Oh, it's gonna be
2026.
Huge. It's gonna be massive for who does well, and I think it could really open up like some wild people to do well, honestly.
Yeah,
because it's like you said, every sport has like teams, people that are dominant. You know, I think like the Patriots in the NFL, like Alabama for college football. It's like they always have domination, but I think what's weird about F1 and like why that domination hits different is like if you're a NFL fan and maybe you're like LA Rams fan and like Patriots are, you know, say they were still dominating, you still have each individual game for the Rams to watch. So it's like they could win, they could lose. It's still up for grabs. Right now, I think, you know, why some people are like, oh, it's boring. It's because, you know, we're back in domination where it's like, well, Max is probably going to win. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like it's not like there's multiple things that happen where other people have a chance to win. It's like, yeah, Max is probably going to win. Yeah. And I think that domination in F1 shows itself way more than it probably does in like other sports because of the format of the sport even. Yeah. Which is cool in some ways, but also it's like, then you're like, oh man.
And also because of the disparity of like constructing your own car. Like you'll watch like Indycar like last year, you'll see someone like Graham Rahal who like will barely I think the only reason Graham Rahal last year qualified for the 500 is somebody crashed in quali or testing or something like that. And
they barely made it in.
And he barely made it in. But then like a few months later, he got pole at Mid-Ohio. Like, you know, that's what's so interesting about IndyCars. Yeah. Like it really, like any given race, anybody could win under the right conditions.
Yeah. It's why I mean, you see this comment, I feel like a lot on like F1 videos of, you know, when people are like, oh, the domination. It's like, they're like, oh, they should change this thing. It's like, no, if you, I think what's fun about F1 is because everything can be changed. When there's big switches, like there could be some crazy switches that happen with like who is dominating. Yeah. But it's like, if you want a spec series, go watch IndyCar. Like that's why IndyCar is great at the end of the day. Cause it's like, you don't see a lot of like repeat winners throughout the season. And then if you do, it's honestly even more impressive because you know that they're not driving some crazy dominant car. Obviously, there are things they can change, and you know, sometimes the car can be working better than other times. But at the end of the day, they're just fantastic drivers and getting incredible chances to show off their skill, which I think is really, really fun to watch.
Also in IndyCar, those cars are like tanks. Like they can, like you watch in Barber, like people will go off track into the grass and hit a bump. Yeah. And then the front wing will like create a divot in the grass and still be
F1
intact.
Car would have just shattered. It would have exploded on that hit.
F1 car's like
his wing was fine. I can't remember who that was. I
think it was Kiffin Simpson.
Yeah.
But like
wing was just fine.
F1 cars are like a Fabergé egg. Yeah. You know?
You poke that wing. I mean, you look at when in Miami when Carlos came across on like Piastri with like back wheel kind of slid out and just touched the front wing and it just folded like a piece of paper.
But like Indy cars are like bumper cars. Yeah. It's wild like how durable they are.
You see them slam into each other like a NASCAR would sometimes. Yeah. And you go, how is this? open wheel. How is this even possible?
Yeah, they definitely like do make contact with each other sometimes, like it's a NASCAR race, which is like I think it's great.
I think it's great. It's fun. I mean, otherwise you have like weird penalties that are given out because people are racing, but not here to bitch about the FIA right now at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But so content creator for Formula E right now, doing your own stuff. Obviously, kind of acting, the comedy side was where you got your start in. Is that still something that you're wanting to pursue, or
I mean,
has your
I still regularly audition for stuff.
Yeah.
I was, I've had like small parts in a bunch of TV shows. I was in a movie that just premiered at Sundance that's going to come out in theaters sometime this year.
Oh.
And so like I still like very much want to be an actor.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older, I've just sort of put sort of less hopes on like that being the one thing that I do in my life. I also like have a full-time day job where I work on the social team for a bank.
Yep.
And make TikToks about personal finance and things like that.
The dream.
Yeah. And I'm a content creator for Formula E this season, which has been really fun. I got to go to Mexico City for round 1 and interview drivers and talk to the teams, and
so cool.
That was an amazing experience, and getting more into Formula E has been a lot of fun because it's a really exciting racing series. And I really love making like motorsport content. Like I love talking about F1. I love talking about Indycar, Formula E. I don't personally, for me, see it ever becoming like a full-time thing for myself. Like I know a lot of people who are in this space like want to work for a team or like want to be a presenter at Formula One.
Yeah.
But like that's not really like a life I want for myself. Like I'm married with a kid. Like I'm kind of a homebody. Like I don't really like to travel that much. I think if I was offered a job where I had to travel 24 weeks out of the year, my wife would divorce me. So like I'm like I'm very happy like with this remaining a side hustle that I do, that I just do for fun. And like occasionally I'll do like a brand partnership. And like, make an ad on my Instagram or TikTok for
F124,
for F124, F1 Clash, like those things. Like I think this will remain like just like a fun side thing that I do, because I just like don't really see a life for myself where I do it full time, and I am able to continue to like have the life I have right now, which I like.
Yeah. I think you bring such a different perspective on content creation than like most other people that I know. I mean, like you're married with a kid. Yeah. Like I don't know any other F1 content creator that is even married, let alone like has a child. So I'm like, you talk to.
I'm also very old. I'm older than most of the people.
You're basically the same age as us. What are you talking? Like it's close.
I'm 40.
It's like there's still a 2 in front of mine. So basically the same age. Hey, sometimes I feel like I'm 40. My back's giving out now. But like it is like such a different aspect of how you probably look at things.
Yeah.
Versus like a lot. I think there's a lot of us that like we have that, like you said, that flexibility to like right now, like a brand deal comes in, drive for Uber, do random things, like bring in money to pay the bills. But it's like you're like, oh, I am married and have a child. Like there's like so many other things on top of it. So it's cool that you have a job that's still like in the realm of things that you do. Yeah. And then you get to still do things with Formula E, But like you said, like traveling 24 weeks out of the year, you'd probably be hard. You might need to sleep on this couch then.
Yeah, that's a young man's game. Yeah. Like, I mean, if I'd fallen into this when I was like 24, 25, I'd probably have a much different outlook on things and have different goals. But I just don't ever really see it being a full-time thing for me. And then also like, we could talk about this, like very few content creators in the motorsport space are able to make enough money to do this full time. Yeah. So
very few.
I think it's just like
camera zoom, very few.
So I just don't think for me in my situation, it's smart for me to try to put all my eggs in that basket. Yeah. I mean, you have people who have podcasts, who have Patreons. You have like, P1 with Matt and Tommy. You have the Red Flags guys. You have Rocketpoweredmohawk. Yep. Who is like, I don't know if you know this, Rocketpoweredmohawk apparently makes like $50,000 a month on Patreon. Mohawk.
That's crazy.
Rocket Powered Mohawk has like almost 19,000 monthly contributors on Patreon.
I'm literally pulling this up.
And 300.
That's so impressive.
And like 365,000 subscribers on YouTube. But I think like that guy just like exclusively makes stuff for his Patreon and like occasionally will put it on his YouTube and then doesn't. I think he got banned from TikTok.
He did. He had to like fully restart, which
and he doesn't post to Instagram that much because I don't think he has any financial incentive to.
Yeah.
And so he just has like this hardcore fan base that contribute to his Patreon and like watch his YouTubes. But like, you know, those people are like outliers. Like most people who are in this space like aren't making enough money to fully support themselves.
Yeah.
So
for reference, everyone, I pulled up the Patreon. He has 20,293 members, and he has one membership option, which is like the base level of like $350 a month.
Yeah.
So he's only making when Patreon they take a pretty good cut of that first one, so it's probably like $2 he's making, but like you said, like $40K.
Yeah, he's crushing it.
I did not, because I've always seen like his TikToks and like his YouTube videos, but like that is so wild. Like that is insanely impressive, honestly.
No, yeah, and he's funny. Like, don't get me wrong, Rocket Powered Mohawk is so incredibly offensive.
Oh yeah,
and but somehow he gets away with it because he is so funny.
Yeah,
he's like the Howard Stern of Formula One.
Yeah,
like
he set it up as like I could not like randomly do a show like that.
No,
now. People would be like Josh.
Whoa.
You're like, this is not your. Where is the loving, very nice Josh? Like, what is happening? Whereas like he like immediately set that as his brand, and he's like, this is what the fuck I'm gonna do, and you're like, yeah, all right, fair enough.
But also he gets away with it because he like nobody is like safe from him. He criticizes everybody.
Yeah,
he criticizes all of the drivers, all of the teams, all of the team principals. Yep. Like makes fun of the FIA. Like he likes, for lack of a better term, speaks truth to power.
Yep.
And calls people out on their bullshit in a way that a lot of content creators don't feel comfortable because they don't want to offend or cross the wrong people.
Oh, I love crossing the wrong people. There's just, I won't do it about everyone because I'll say this. I will if you do something stupid, even if you're my boy Daniel Ricciardo, I will criticize you. But like I have noticed it is very funny making videos about certain people, Lance Stroll, and other people when they do bad things, or you're like, I don't think so and so should be driving an F1, whatever. And the way people come out of the woodworks, to defend people, I think it shows the dedication that people have to like, the people they support. Which same way, you were saying like you post a Ferrari video, the Tifosi, you're gonna be like, boom, like it. They ride or die.
There are people who have such conviction they are willing to die on a Lance Stroll hill.
Yeah, it's like, and that's not a big hill. Like also, like it's not like that cool of a hill. It's like
not that cool.
Yeah,
of a hill.
It's like I grew up like skiing and snowboarding in Michigan. I was like, this is a mountain, this is a hill, and then I moved to California. I was like, that shit was nothing. That's what I imagined a Lance Stroll hill is like. Then you actually like go support someone who's good, and you're like, oh, this is what like supporting someone. This is gonna be a fun episode, but it's like, it's what I've realized is like everyone has their own opinions on drivers at the end of the day, and some people get a little too defensive of their drivers who maybe shouldn't have a seat anymore. But that's just me. That's
in his defense, he is good enough to drive in Formula One. I don't think Lance Stroll, under other circumstances, would be good enough to last in Formula One more than like 1, 2, or 3 seasons.
Yeah. I think he definitely, it's what I always say. People are like, oh, like people always give like the weirdest excuses when I'll make like a video. And it's like, he didn't perform well. And it's like, Fernando finishes P4 or something, like puts that car somewhere wild. And then Lance is down in like P16. It's like, oh, like give him some time. It's like the man's been in Formula One for like a decade.
All he's had his time.
Yeah, he's had his time. Like I get it. I'm always like, I'm a big love me Logan Sargent. The man's time in F1 is looking like it's done.
Yeah,
unfortunately. But like should he have had another chance this year? Hard to say. I think it was great that Williams gave him a chance, and I was like, give the man the benefit of doubt. I love him, but it's like at the end of the day, if you're not cut out for it, get out and let someone else in, see what they can do.
Yeah, there's too few seats and too many talented drivers who deserve an opportunity to prove themselves. But I think what you're seeing with Lance Stroll is like so many drivers have their seat because of marketing. Like you have one person on the team who is there because they are a really good driver, and you have one person there is because they're bringing the money.
Yep.
Like, and often it's because they're bringing sponsorship bucks, or they have like a relationship with power unit, like with Yuki and the Honda power units at V-Carb. But like Lance Stroll is just like that. It's just a little more black and white and cut and dry. It's because dad owns the team.
Yep.
So it's like, it's the same thing, but because it's not via the typical channels of like bringing sponsorship money, like he gets a lot of hate.
Yep. Yeah. But there's a lot of great drivers that probably should have a seat, but have shown their worth elsewhere, Teo Porcher, and now have like IndyCar seats, things like that. So I get it's cool to see what people decide to do when, they kind of realize like F1 might not happen because of just the politics at the end of the day of F1 and how hard it is to get a seat.
And I think there are a lot of drivers now that probably will not be, that are currently on the grid, that probably won't be in F1 in the next 1, 2, 3 years. And I'm really fascinated to see where they're going to go next. Like, are people going to go to Formula E? Are people going to go to IndyCar? Are people exclusively going to do endurance racing?
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of money in endurance racing.
No.
So I'm like, because I feel like that's what's going to cause some of these other series to grow, is when the fan bases of some of these drivers that are currently there, like the Yukis, or maybe a Logan Sargent, or maybe a Zhou, or maybe a Valtteri, like if they decide they want to keep driving and they go to Formula E or IndyCar, I think a lot of the fan base will go with them.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we've even seen that, I think, this year. Like Long Beach for IndyCar set a like new record for the amount of people that they had there. The WEC at Spa for the 6-hour Spa also set a record for like the amount of like attendees on like the Sunday, or sorry, it was a Saturday race. So it's like there's definitely some like overflow. I feel like probably of like I know other people that are like F1 fans and have like started to like follow other motorsports series. Like there's definitely an overflow, and like at the end of the day, like that's probably what's going to happen, especially if you're like we were talking about with IndyCar. Like they do a lot of things well, but like their marketing could use some help at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, if their marketing is just word of mouth from people that have gone to races and other things, then like that's still something that'll work. It's just going to take a little more time.
Yeah, it's fascinating because there was a point in the 90s where IndyCar was very big and like was sort of mounting a challenge against Formula One. But then when the kart IRL split happened, it totally diluted the brand and the following, and that's what really caused NASCAR's, or contributed to NASCAR's rise and prominence when it did. And I often think about like, where would IndyCar be today if that split hadn't happened?
Where would it be?
I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. I love seeing the growth in other sports, and I know for myself, like I want to try to get to more IndyCar races, like WEX long morning. The 2 cups of coffee I haven't hit it yet. Like WEC will be in Coda for the Lone Star 6 hours or whatever they call it. And like definitely want to try to get to that race. Might try to go to IndyCar in Nashville. And I'm like, again, it's the thing about these series of like a WEC general admission ticket for 3 days is $60.
It's amazing.
And I'm like, I can't get a lunch at Silverstone for that price. Like, it's crazy.
I know you're interviewing me, but like, have people asked you on this, like what you want out of all of this? Like, what are your like ultimate career goals in like the motorsport content creation space?
People have asked me off camera, but not on camera. I think so. For me, as someone that started like way back in the day, really just kind of like wanted to make content, in college, like was always a fan of Casey Neistat and his personality and like vlogs, and realized vlogs are really hard to do if you don't have a following. Like really still my favorite thing in the world to edit is just like a vlog. I think it's like so fun. But it's like, if you have no kind of following, really hard to get people to want to watch a vlog about what you're doing. And then shifted over to coffee, and now ended up in something where it has created like somewhat of a following. So I think now it's figuring out a way to make it like a a longevity kind of thing, something that'll like last through the ebbs and flows of of the TikTok algorithm and like YouTube and things like that. And so that was where the idea for this kind of show kind of came in. Is I wanted something that would be video focused at the end of the day, and people could come and watch. And the goal would be every corner of motorsports, whether you're a driver, an engineer, a commentator from like any series, like a content creator, like doing that to like get those like really interesting perspectives and just like sit down and have a conversation, and then getting it out into the world. And I think for me, this is kind of I want this to be my thing that will be a thing that propels me into being able to like finally do content full time.
Do you exclusively want to be an independent content creator, or do you want to work with a series or a team?
Yeah, I think I love making content. So at the end of the day, I don't want anything to like take away from that. But I think after doing Long Beach and Vegas and being able to like interview fans and like interview drivers, like I've really fallen in love with that part of like the presenting side of things and like doing the interviews and everything. And I love just like I got to do a 30-minute chat with Jack Harvey, and we just kind of like
cool.
We just kind of like walked towards the hairpin, and we just like chatted. We beefed about pineapple on pizza.
Sure.
Which, whoops, sorry, Jack. Did I like pineapple on my pizza? My bad. Pineapple on pizza? Yes or no?
Sure. Yeah.
Good man. Good man. Very California response, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I like the mix of the salty and sweet. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, it's just I realized I really enjoy that. So if there's a way to keep doing like this kind of thing and like make content and like talk to cool people who are in the sport and like want to sit down and have a coffee and like talk about the sport and like whether wherever that conversation might go, but then also be able to go to races and work with different teams or work with like F1 or Indycar or WEC or different things. I think that is the big dream and the big goal. And I think this is kind of the way that I'm starting to show the like diversity of what I'm able to do. That's what I've done content now for F1, like around F1 since early 2021, and I've had multiple times where I've left jobs, been let go, whatever, where I've like really put like the work in, and things have come of it. But it's a slow grind at the end of the day, and like unless you get really lucky, content is a very slow grind to like make it work full time. And so it's like, all right, well then let's just set things up so that it can be the best for the long-term future. And like I think this show is a great way to do it, just to be able to sit and talk with people. And like I think it'll be cool when I already know like not everyone is going to be able to sit in my living room, and whether those interviews happen in someone's trailer or like at a coffee shop near the track or like somewhere random. Like I'm really excited to be able to do those things and kind of see where everything will go. And I think just setting myself up so that when opportunities come up, hopefully things will happen.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's also like brings up like a really important like misconception that people have a lot of content creators in the space. Like I think a lot of like the really good content creators got into this space and started making like Formula One content or motorsport content in general, not for any other reason than they just like wanted to connect with other people.
Yeah.
Like I think for me, like, and I swear to God, I'm not bullshitting you when I say this, like the biggest byproduct that I've gotten out of like this entire like journey in the last year is like getting to connect with other people.
It's
and
crazy.
Getting to meet other people, like because we live in like a world and like have a lifestyle now that's like very isolating, and we don't really get opportunities to have human connection the way we used to. And getting the opportunity just to like meet so many amazing people and just like, I don't know, DM them, talk with them on the phone, like meet people in person like this. Like this is probably the best thing that I get out of it. Out of anything.
Yeah. I have friends that live in Australia, Europe, London, and I've like gone to races with some of them that I had never met in person. We just like met through streaming together or like, both making content or whatever it was. And like, those are people that like I would go and fly to go hang out with them. Cause like they are like what I would consider close friends. And I think it is so cool that like that community you can build. I mean, the F1 community is huge at the end of the day, but it's so cool to see what people have kind of built. And I think that's even from the very beginning, my goal was to have a like community of like fans. Like we all not all have to be fans of the same driver, the same team, but just like somewhere where you can come hang out and chill.
Yeah.
And then like the weird, like you said, the weird byproduct of like making content is like I just kind of did it to see what happened, and now it's like, how do I know all these people that live in all these different countries? Like that is insane.
Yeah, because I think when it comes down to it, like most of us are desperate for human connection.
Yeah,
and like talking about motorsport is just kind of like the medium that like is bringing us together.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's crazy. Well, it's I don't really I'm like it is insane. It's like motorsport brings you together, and it is and it's been cool to see the just there's more young fans getting involved at like different tracks and everything, and like the fan base is growing for different series, and I think it'll be very cool to see where it goes. And I think also from a creator perspective, like me when kind of do it full time, you still kind of doing like the part time aspect. Like it does seem like brands and teams are starting to like see the value of like creators that like other industries, like fashion or tech or other industries have like seen for a long time. And I think the world of motorsports is finally starting to see the value. And it's like, it's taken a while to get there. Like I've had a lot of talks with a lot of different brands that are like, why would I pay you money when like your fan base is like this age or like whatever? It's like, well, it's building a connection. It's like building that, like just that trust that it's like, what we've done is I had a great convo with a friend who was like, I was talking to him about like a brand deal that I made and we were talking about like the money side of things. And like this guy who is like a chemical engineer, so like nothing in the world of content. He's like, oh yeah, I'm sure some people like look at, the numbers and they're like, oh, for like 2 videos, 3 videos. And they're like, but they forget about the work that's been done to create that level of trust where it's not like paying for an advertisement on TV. It's like you're paying a person to promote something.
And I think that level of trust is also like very important because I don't know if you've dealt with this, but like I've been approached by brands who have asked me or gauged interest about making content for them. And there's some brands like I won't make content for, like, like I don't gamble. Like I have nothing against gambling. Like I've played poker and stuff, but like I'm not big on like sports gambling.
Yeah.
And so like I don't think I could ever in good conscience make a piece of content telling people to go bet on sports.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of money in there.
There's a lot of money.
And if you like to gamble on sports, that's fine. That's your thing. But like I don't personally feel comfortable telling my followers to go do it when I don't do it myself.
Exactly. Yeah. It's that thing of, I think, people forget that we do all what, no matter what your numbers are, there are people that will listen to what you have to say.
Sure.
And it's like, one, current world climate in general, like you can't ignore certain things that are happening, but also it's like you do kind of have to be careful about like what you say and what you promote, because at the end of the day it's like you don't know who's following you, like you don't know like how impressionable they are. And like I remember that was one of the things, like when I was early on and like starting to gain followers, I was like, oh, like if like I need to figure out like what I am okay with like promoting and like what I am not okay with promoting at the end of the day. And it's like, especially like you said, like sports gambling, I've had, say very similar brands reach out about that. And it's like, one, I don't do it, like you said. And it's like, I am not opposed to people doing it, but like, do I really want to tell like an audience that's probably like low 20s and like in college and doesn't have a lot of money to go drop a few $100s on sports gambling? It's like, no.
Yeah.
Not really.
Right.
So
totally.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot to unpack with that, with the ethics of creating content. But
sure. Where do you see the landscape like shifting in the next few years? Like, do you think, I know like we saw at Thermal, for instance, like Indycar had their resident content creators where they had the folks at Track Talk, and they also had Ash Vandeleg come, as well as Connor Daly. Like, do you see more series and teams like in having like resident content creators who are sort of like one man band, like marketing tools to sort of like promote things? Or like, do you see it sort of being a little bit of the same of what's going on right now?
Yeah, I think honestly part of that is going to be like a team like a team to team and like series to series basis
Yeah.
of like what it's going to look like. I think, you look at F1, you look at IndyCar, there's always certain teams that are more open to like the social media marketing side of things.
Right.
And like there's other ones that either just don't have the money or they're just not interested yet. And so I think there's going to be I feel like there's probably going to be a shift where there's definitely be certain teams that like, I know like Ferrari and some others have like hired on specific people that are like, oh, I'm a content creator for like Ferrari esports or like whatever it might be. Like, they're not one of their drivers, but they are a creator for them. And I think that is something you might see. The problem that I foresee coming from that is there's so many of the creators that we have niched ourselves into a team specifically where it's like there are teams that I could go work with. I big McLaren fan, but like I could go work with an Aston Martin or a Ferrari or a Red Bull and do different things that I've as I've done in the past. But to like I think it would be very inauthentic to go back to the authentic side of being a creator to be like, oh, Aston Martin signed me on to be their content creator for the next year and like make content about Aston Martin. And so people would look at that and be like, well, that's cool, but like, can you still hype up McLaren? Can you still do all these different things?
Right.
I think that's where we will see a shift is if people are able to either work with specific teams or series and still, be able to be fans at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, we're just fans. Like,
sure.
We are fans that make videos and do it, like a lot of times get cool opportunities.
Yeah.
But like, I would never want those cool opportunities to like distract from the fact that I am still just a fan who likes to go to the track and watch cars go around track.
Yeah.
And
sometimes I'll make a video where I have an opinion on something and people will be like, well, who the hell are you? And I always respond, I'm nobody. I'm just a fan.
I'm just a fan.
I'm not an expert at all. Like,
not an expert.
Just giving you an opinion that nobody asked for.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think there will definitely be a shift. I think we're already seeing the shift of like more people getting invited to IndyCar and things. And right now, I think we're in the phase of people are getting invited by like teams or the series or whatever it might be, and there's not really a lot of money exchanging hands right now.
Sure.
Because they just haven't accounted for budgets to pay creators to do content like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's good to see teams reach out and want to work with creators, and then ideally moving forward, they'll then be able to set aside parts of their marketing budgets and different things to then bring on creators to do cool and interesting things. And I think that'd be cool to see. And I think we're in the early stages of that, and hopefully as we move forward, like teams will do it, and as teams do it and series do it, others will follow suit, and there will be a domino effect. But whether that takes like 2 years or 7 years, at the end of the day, I think that's the hard part, is like you never know. So it's a weird thing with being a content creator. You got to put yourself in a position to capitalize when those things do happen, and know that like maybe you are working a random job right now. I know a lot of people definitely look at like the things I post and are like, what the hell does Josh do? How does he make money? What is happening? And it's like, I drive Uber. I wake up at 5:30 to drive Uber until like 1 o'clock so I can come back, make a coffee, and then like edit and everything. And like that is that the dream? No. But does it hopefully lead towards where like what the goals are and what everything is? Like ideally, yeah.
Sure.
And like, will it work out? Manifesting, yes. But there's always the chance that it doesn't. And like at the end of the day, I think you have to be flexible to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I think it'll be really interesting to see where it goes in the next 5 to 10 years. With motorsport and content. What do you kind of think on that?
No, I think you're right for the most part. I think for a few years Red Bull had like resident content creators for their team, and I think they got rid of that this year. But
they still have a couple.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
like Pondon is one of them.
Okay.
And they have Dirk and one other.
Okay.
But definitely I feel like they've narrowed down. Like it's much smaller than
because I think for a while it was just like big content creators that happened to be on their roster.
Yeah.
But now it seems like they've narrowed down specifically to motorsport content creators.
Yes.
I would not be surprised if you start seeing more teams doing something similar where they have like a handful of resident content creators who are like not just part of the social team getting like footage of drivers, but also like being front facing.
Yeah.
And kind of like spokesperson type people for the team. And maybe like in doing that, it takes some of the pressure off of like the team principals and the drivers having to do it. I'm interested to see like where it's going to go, but I do see teams and series starting to employ more content creators because they're like, I feel like the lines are getting blurred between like what is considered like a traditional journalist and like legacy media and what people are now doing online. Yeah. Like talking about sports or just really anything in general as content creators. And so like the lines are getting blurred and I don't know exactly where it's going, but I do feel like people are going to start utilizing content creators more. Yeah. In the space for sure.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see how the space continues to grow and flourish. And I think the only thing that I would hammer home is that the F1 space of creators, we just need to do a better job of working with each other because it is one of the things I've noticed is if you look at the gaming sphere or the tech sphere, especially when you talk like YouTube and TikTok and things, like everyone's collaborating. They're doing things together, and you just don't see that as much in the world of F1. And I don't know if it's because there's a thought process of like, oh, there's so little to do in general that like, how can I share this, with someone else? And for me, that is just something that I would love to see more. And I think another reason why I like wanted to kind of start this thing is just be able to like have that collaborative function in sport.
I think it's partially because we're very spread out. Like people are all over
that
the
does
place,
not help.
So it's like not like F1 content creators are living in a TikTok house, like making like, I don't know.
We probably live the closest of
and it's still pretty far.
Yeah, and it's still because freaking LA. It's still pretty far.
I was like, do I really want to drive like an hour to England?
Do I really want to hang out with Josh and drive an hour? Like,
But yeah,
it's true. No one really lives close, so it's hard.
There should be more collaboration, but I think the fact that there's so much like physical distance between most creators, I think it makes it very hard.
Yeah, agreed. It makes it hard, but I think people are getting better about it, and I see like cool things. So I'm excited to see how like that aspect grows.
I do think though online there are a lot of creators who are very, like most creators that I know in the space are very supportive of other creators, and like if they are competitive or jealous, like they keep that to themselves. Yeah. And are pretty good about like, if someone gets an opportunity, like congratulating them in the comments or like sharing a piece of content they made of it, made from that opportunity. Like, I feel like people are generally very supportive, which I appreciate.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, on that note, I think we're setting records for how long we're going today. I love it. But I think that's been we have covered so many more aspects than I could have imagined. Sure. But just for the people that don't know where to find you, what fun things do you have coming up that you can share, and where can the people follow you?
I may or may not be going to Portland for Formula E. I don't know. I was supposed at the beginning of the season we talked about
later in the year, right?
That's in June.
Oh, that's in June.
End of June. Yeah. So I think I'm going to Portland for Formula E, but that's not finalized yet. Okay. And other than that, you can just follow me on TikTok or Instagram at this James Coker. You can also follow my YouTube page, James Coker F1, which has no subscribers because it's so hard to convert following from one of the other platforms to YouTube.
Oh, it's so hard.
So please follow my YouTube.
He needs it. Look at him.
I'm desperate here.
Just a struggling actor over here that needs some YouTube subs.
I need a platform that monetizes videos.
Oh my God. Because TikTok doesn't do it at the end of the day, really.
No. But that's all I got going on right now. Just I don't know.
Incredible. Well, hey, thank you for sharing a coffee and being on the show.
Thank you for the coffee. It was delicious.
Hey, well, if I didn't make good coffee, then barista would have to be cut from my name, I think.
Imagine like sitting down and we're about to talk and I took a sip of coffee and I just spit it out. I'm like, oh, what is this shit?
Someone See, now that you've said that, someone's gonna watch this and then end up on the show, and they're just gonna be like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be my moment. I'm ready." Like, oh, it's horrible. Yeah, but yeah, thank you for being on. It was so much fun.
This was great. Thanks, man.
Sweet.